Dust caked the ornate frame. Years, decades, perhaps centuries had passed since its last cleaning. The mirror, once a prized possession, now lay forgotten, a relic of a bygone era, hidden away in the attic of a derelict house. But the mirror held a secret. It wasn't merely a reflector of light, it was a window into something far more sinister. Something dark and hungry lurked within its depths, waiting for an unsuspecting soul to gaze upon its surface. The house stood on a hill overlooking the town, a looming silhouette against the stormy sky. It was a place of whispers, its secrets whispered on the wind. Locals spoke of a family torn apart by tragedy, their souls claimed by the very mirror that now lay forgotten in the attic. A chilling tale dismissed as folklore by most. But legends often have roots in truth, a seed of reality twisted by time and fear. The boy, Finn, was different. Drawn to the mysteries the town held, he saw the abandoned house not as something to be feared, but as a challenge, a puzzle to be solved. He'd heard the stories, of course, the whispers of a haunted mirror, but he dismissed them as mere superstition. He liked to think of himself as rational, a believer in logic and reason. Yet a part of him, a small, insistent voice, urged him toward the house. He couldn't explain the pull he felt, the almost magnetic draw, but he couldn't ignore it either. One blustery afternoon, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a thirst for adventure, he decided to explore the abandoned house. The air grew heavy as Finn approached the house. The wind seemed to moan through the broken windows, a mournful symphony that sent shivers down his spine. He pushed open the creaking door, its hinges groaning in protest after years of neglect. Dust swirled in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced through the grimy windows, dancing like tiny ghosts in the stillness. Each step on the rotting floorboards echoed through the house, the sound amplified in the silence. Finn wandered through darkened hallways, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, revealing glimpses of forgotten lives. A discarded doll lay on its side, its painted eyes staring vacantly. A cobweb-covered portrait hung askew on the wall, the faces of the family obscured by grime and time. The house held an eerie stillness, a silence so profound that it felt almost alive. Finn's heart pounded as he climbed the rickety stairs to the attic. The air grew colder, the musty scent of decay thick and heavy. He could feel his pulse quicken, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. He reached the top of the stairs and edged his way into the attic. It was a cramped, cluttered space, filled with discarded furniture and shrouded in shadows. His flashlight beam danced across the room, coming to rest on a large shape covered by a dusty sheet. He took a step closer, his hand trembling slightly as he reached out to pull the sheet away. The mirror, revealed, seemed to gleam even in the dim light. Its ornate frame was intricately carved, the details sharp despite the years of neglect. The glass itself was surprisingly clear, reflecting back Finn's image with startling clarity. Section 5. Face to Face. Finn stared at his reflection, his breath catching in his throat. The boy in the mirror wasn't him, or at least it wasn't quite him. His reflection was twisted, a grotesque mockery of his own features. His eyes burned with an unnatural intensity, and a cruel smile curled his lips, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. Terror, raw and primal, surged through him. He stumbled back, tripping over a loose floorboard and falling hard. The flashlight clattered away, plunging the attic into darkness. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding against his ribs. He could feel the presence of the mirror, cold and menacing, even in the darkness. He had to get out, had to escape. Section 6. Trapped in the reflection. He turned to flee, but the attic door was gone. In its place, the mirror loomed, its surface rippling like water. His reflection, still twisted and grotesque, reached out from the mirror's depths, its long, clawed fingers scrabbling at the glass. Panic welled up inside him, choking him. He was trapped, caught in a nightmare. The mirror was no longer just a reflection, it was a gateway, and something evil was trying to break through. Finn pressed himself against the wall, his eyes wide with terror. As the reflection grew closer, its laughter echoing through the attic. The laughter sent chills down his spine, each chuckle filled with malice and delight. He was running out of time. Desperation surged through Finn. He wouldn't be taken, wouldn't become another victim of the mirror's evil. He grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor, the only weapon he could find. His hand trembled as he raised it, pointing the jagged edge at the mirror. "Go back," he screamed, his voice hoarse with fear. "Leave me alone." The reflection paused, its grin widening into a mocking smile. It seemed to mock his fear, his desperation. But Finn held his ground, his fear replaced by a surge of defiance. He wouldn't give in, wouldn't let the mirror win. With a surge of adrenaline, he slammed the glass shard against the mirror's surface. The mirror shattered with an ear-splitting crack, shards of glass flying through the air. Finn shielded his face with his arms as the pieces rained down around him. When the dust settled, he slowly lowered his arms, his heart still pounding in his chest. The mirror was gone, reduced to a pile of glittering fragments on the attic floor. He was free. He stumbled out of the attic, fleeing the house as if all the demons of hell were at his heels. He didn't look back. Didn't dare to see if something had followed him out of that cursed place. He ran until he reached the safety of his own home, collapsing on his bed, his body trembling with exhaustion and relief. The nightmare was over, or so he thought. As the days passed, Finn couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. It wasn't anything he could put his finger on, not at first. It was a subtle shift, a darkness that had taken root deep inside him. He found himself easily angered, his temper flaring at the slightest provocation. Cruel thoughts, dark and vicious, whispered through his mind, urging him to lash out. His reflection in the window no longer showed the scared boy who had fled the abandoned house. Now, when he looked in the mirror, he saw a flicker of something else in his eyes, a coldness, a hunger that chilled him to the bone. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, a lingering effect of the terror he'd experienced. But deep down, a chilling truth was dawning. The mirror was gone, but its evil had followed him home. One evening, as Finn stood in the bathroom staring at his reflection, a slow, cruel smile spread across his face. It was the same smile he had seen in the attic, the same mocking grin that had chilled him to his core. His eyes, once filled with curiosity and wonder, now burned with an unsettling intensity. He reached out, his fingers tracing the outline of his reflection in the glass. The touch sent a jolt of perverse pleasure through him. He was no longer just Finn, the curious boy who loved exploring the unknown. He was something else, something twisted and corrupted. The mirror might have shattered, but its darkness had found a new home, a new reflection to wear. And in the depths of his own eyes, Finn saw the terrifying truth. He was no longer the reflection, he was the monster,